Hey there, this is Alex over at DuraLabel, and in this video I'm going to be going over some of our object size options as well as our alignment and layering options. In order to do that, I'm going to be showing you a redesign of this fire extinguisher template that I had created in Label Designer. So we'll go ahead and open up Label Designer and begin. To begin, I'm going to go ahead and set the width and the length. We're using a 3-inch tag stock for this label, so I want to make sure to actually change the width. Currently, it's starting at that 4, so for this design, I'm going to switch that to 3 inches, and for the length, I want this to be about 4.5 inches long. Now that I have that set, I can go ahead and click on Create New Label. Now that we have the canvas up, I did notice that I forgot to actually change it from landscape to portrait, but no worries there. We can do that really quick just by going into our settings option, and with the size adjusting, where we're set to landscape, I'm going to change to portrait, and I'll go ahead and go back into that insert menu. That way we can begin. The first thing that I'm going to work on creating is actually going to be that fire extinguisher inspection record header that will be at the top of the label. So I'm actually going to add in some rich text. The reason that I'm adding this rich text is I'm going to actually have 2 different sizes of font that'll be on the header itself, and that's something that can be achieved with rich text specifically. The first thing that I do want to do is I'm actually going to click off of it really quick, reselect the text box, that way I don't start in that editing mode, and I am going to change the font size just to about 20 for right now. Likely I might change this either to be smaller, or especially when it comes to that second line of text, I'll be making that smaller for sure, but I do want to start in something that doesn't cause me to type too far off of the canvas as I'm typing these words. Now I'm going to go ahead and move my mouse back over the text box, double click on it, highlight text box, and this is where I'm going to type in fire extinguisher. I'm sure you'll notice that due to the text wrap features of rich text, you'll see that it is doing that with the word extinguisher. That's okay, we're going to come through and correct all of that a little bit later, so I'm going to actually hit enter and add inspection record as well. Now that I have everything typed out, I'll work on actually resizing this as well as changing the font sizes a little more just to make sure everything fits a little nicer on the label itself. The first thing that I am going to do for the resizing of this actual text is, instead of going to object size, I'm actually going to go into our object order and align the label. We also have these fit in label options, and I do want to utilize that to very quickly stretch out the selection box to the actual width of the label itself. I'll go ahead and click on this option on the left. That'll do that for me there. And I'll be able to see now that we do have fire extinguisher fitting a little better within the bounds of the label, but I do think I still want that text smaller, and I know for sure with inspection record I do want that to be smaller as well. Now we just need to resize some of the text that we have, so I'll go ahead, double click, highlight just the fire extinguisher section, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to 16 points. I think that's going to look good with the actual header we're going to add, so I'm going to do the same with the inspection record. I'll make sure to highlight that. Instead of going to 16 though, I do actually want this to be even smaller. I kind of want it to fit within the fire extinguisher, so I don't want inspection record to be outside of that or wider essentially. So I'm going to start with at least 14 points. That's one smaller. I think that looks pretty good as is, but I'm going to try 12 just to see which one I do like a little more between them. I think for me, and just kind of the aesthetic choice I have, I do like this 12 point a little more, but I'm going to go a step further for both of these, and I am going to bold both these sections of text. Perfect. I think that looks good as is. One thing I do want to do though while we are here is I do want to shrink this actual selection box a little more. I'm not going to be having any additional text in this area, so there's no reason that I need this to be that large. For that, I'm going to go into our object size options, and for this width, that'll be what I'm actually adjusting. So I'm just going to click on that, hold it a little bit just to bring it in, and kind of wait till I'm in a spot where it looks like it's kind of even on both for the actual spacing. I think that 0.57 that we ended up getting to looks pretty good, so I'm going to go back into our actual align to label and object order section, and I'm going to utilize this align to label to fully center this. I'm going to be doing this mainly because when I add the actual header in, I want to be able to have both of these centered horizontally. That way I can actually group these together and move them as one item in a few. The next thing that we're going to go ahead and add is going to be a square shape for the actual header. So I'll begin by going back into this insert menu, Clicking on shape defaults to a square, which is perfect for what we need. And I'm going to go into the color palette. This is where I'll be able to uncheck that round option as well as actually make this red. This is going to be a red ribbon on white tape print. So I want to make sure that these are matching what I do have loaded. I'm going to select red for the fill. And then I'm also going to select that for the border since we're not actually going to have any black ribbon loaded in our Toro Max when we print this. Once we have our colors set up, the next thing that I want to do is actually adjust the size as well. I'll be able to do that back through our object size, and I already have an idea of what I want for the length and the width. For the actual length, we're going to be going with 2.5. That way, once we have this centered on the label, both sides have about a 1/4 inch of white space and it's nicely centered. For the width, I think I'm going to go with about 0.75 inches or 3/4. I think that's going to fit pretty nicely in there. So I'll go ahead and center everything using our aligned label and see how it looks. One thing that we're going to quickly notice is that that red square I added is now covering the black text that we had on earlier, which we noticed earlier, but I didn't adjust the layering. That is something I'll actually go over now, and that's going to be using this object order option. We have a few different ones, so this one on the far left is going to bring it all the way forward. The second option in is going to send it all the way back. The third option is going to bring it one layer forward, and the last option all the way to the right is going to send it one layer back. Depending on what you're needing to do, you may need to adjust these according, but for us, with right now only having 2 items, I'm just going to send this red square all the way back. That way we can see that black text. Speaking of black text, that is something that I want to adjust as well really quick. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually select that black text. Now that that is the top layer, that'll be something that we can select. If we had that red box in front, 1, we still probably couldn't see that text, and 2, we would only be able to select that red box. Alternatively, you can use tab on your keyboard to cycle through items on the canvas. So if you ever do have something that is at a lower layer and you do want to adjust that without moving anything else, using the tab is going to be a quick way to do that. Once we have that text selected though, I'll just be going into the paint palette and I'll change that text color to be white. That'll be quick and simple that way. Now we have a header that I'm happy with. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to select all of the items currently on this canvas by just highlighting them. This is going to open the option to actually group items together up in this top left corner. So I'm going to do that. I'll go back into our object size and I'll adjust this Y value. The Y value is going to be going up and down this way, starting at 0, 0, which will be this top left corner. I'll select that item again, back into object size, and I'm going to change this to be 0.25. That way we have nice even spacing around this header. Next, I just need to add some text in for the actual extinguisher number itself. So I'll go ahead back into our insert menu, and I'm actually going to be using the ABC text for this. I'm not quite sure what size I want, and I know with the ABC text, I do have the ability to kind of squish the text if needed. So this will work a little bit better for our needs, whereas rich text, I'll be stuck to font sizes themselves. I may not be utilizing the actual resizing with these orange boxes, but it is an option that I do want to make sure I at least have for this, just depending on how I like the look of the results. I'll go ahead and begin by typing out what I want this text to be, so I'll double click it, highlight the text. With that typed out, the next thing that I want to do is resize everything, but I'm just going to start with the font size. I know I'm going to want that text to be smaller overall than inspection record, so we had 12 for the inspection record. I think I'm going to begin with 10, see how that looks. Again, I might change that a little bit with some resizing. I think the actual size looks fine, but again, I may bring that in a little bit once we actually look at the final results, but for now, as just a placeholder, I'm going to go ahead and keep that. I do want to change the color though to be red for this. This isn't going to have any background that'll kind of be white text for, so we'll select red. And I'll just kind of move this to a rough area for now. One thing though that I do want to do really quick, just while we're still working on this extinguisher numbers section, is I am going to at least have it so that it starts in a similar spot as the spacing here. So I'm going to adjust this X value, and that's just going to be set to 0.25. I know that I need that 0.25 based on setting this to that 2.5. Both sides have a 1/4 inch, so this will be a good way to do that. Next, we need to add a couple tables into this label. I want to add a recharge record as well as an inspection record. So in order to do that, I'm going to begin with just adding one square into the canvas. I'll go ahead back into our insert menu and I'll click shape. That'll add a square for us again. Going into that color palette, I'll deselect round. Make sure we're just going into this border selection, and I'll change that over to red. So for this very first table that we're going to work on, this is going to be for the recharge record. I do know that I want about 2 different sections that we can write on once this label has been printed out. So there are going to be 2 rows that won't have any actual text added. I want to make sure we do have a header indicating this is the recharge record. And then I do want to make sure we have some rows that have dates as well as who actually did that. So what we're going to do is go back into this object size. I know for this length, I'm going to want this to match the initial header. So I'm going to set that to 2.5. And then I know with the width, we're going to set this to 1. The reason we're going to be setting this to 1 inch is because I'm going to want each one of those rows to only be about a 1/4 inch thick. So I'll change the width over to 1. And then for the actual object position itself, I'm going to adjust this y-axis to be 1.5 inches. And for the x, I can either change this to 0.25 since we're here, or we can go back into our align to label options and I can just click on this as well. That'll do the same thing. If I click back into this object size, we'll see that X is now showing at 0.25. Next, we're going to actually work on that recharge record header. So what I'm going to go and do is go back into our insert, and I'm actually going to add in rich text for this. The reason we're going to be using rich text is I'm going to take advantage of both the formatting that we have for the center formatting, as well as the ability to add a background based on the selection box for it. So what I'm going to do with this length, I'll change that to 2.5. And then for the width, like I mentioned, each one of these rows is only going to be a 1/4 inch. So we're going to change that to 0.25. While we're in this edit option for the text itself, you're not going to see anything change with the width. If I deselect this, you're going to probably see that the text will either mostly disappear within that 1/4 inch bound, or you may just see the top of that T just due to the font size. I'll go ahead and deselect just so you can get an idea of what that'll look like. So luckily we are still able to see some of that text. I'll go ahead and click in that area, and we definitely need to change that font size. I think I'm probably going to start at least 10, similar to that Extinguisher number, just to kind of see what that looks like. Overall, I think that came out looking pretty good. I'm going to see what 8 looks like as well. I'm just kind of curious, but I think I like that 10 a little bit more. And I think we're going to go with bold as well for these options. Then, like I did mention, we're also going to add a color background to this. So we can go into this paint palette and we can actually add a background color as well. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to select that to be red. You'll notice that there is still a black border as well, but we're not seeing a black border on this, and we don't need to worry about changing this to be red either. Currently, the weight for this border option is set to 0, so it won't appear on there. I am still going to deselect this round, however, just to make sure that everything looks nice once I've got it layered in on that square. Before we actually do layer that, though, I do want to change the color of the text. I'll change that to white, and I'll just actually change what that text says as well. So let's delete that, and we'll add in recharge record. So now that I have that typed out, after I get another look at it, I think I might want to size this down just a little bit. That way there's a little more spacing in this G. So instead of this 10-point font that it's set to, I think I'm going to try to change that over to 8 points. It looks like I also forgot to get rid of box there, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that as well. Now that we have the text resized a little bit and we've added that red background, I'll actually add that into the square as well. In order to do that, I'm just going to select that again, and we're going to go back into our object size. Luckily, we already know the object position. We're going to ultimately match what we used for the square, so I'll go ahead and change this X to be 0.25. And then I'll go into this Y value and I'm going to adjust that to 1.5. That way it lines up perfectly within the square we initially added. Now that we're done with the header for this table, we actually need to add the lines for the table as well. One thing though that I did notice while I was doing this design, I do think I want to make this extinguisher number just a little bit smaller as well. I think what I'm going to do is match that 8-point font as well as selecting to bold it just so that it does look a little better there. But I do think having a more uniform look across those fonts is going to look a little nicer. I also think with that change of size, I'm going to want to center this just a little better. So I'm going to use these arrows just to kind of find a spot that I like. I think that 1.10 looks okay there, so I'm happy with that. In order to start actually adding the lines for the tables themselves, we're going to be using the shape feature again, and we're going to use the lines where you need to change the color of these as well as deselect round. So I'll go back into the paint palette. I'll deselect round, change that to red. We also need to adjust the length, so of course that'll be done through this object size section. We know it needs to be 2.5, so it fits within that square. Now that I have that set, similarly, we do know the X value is going to be 0.25. And then for this Y value, we can actually set this to about 2. The reason that we're starting at 2 is we know that it begins at 1.5. We have a 0.25 gap, so the second section here would be 1.75, and we can begin by putting this at 2. That way we can do a little bit of math and quickly know where that goes. From here, I'm just going to be doing a little bit of copy and pasting. That way I can get another line in, so copy, paste up in this top left. And we'll basically just now adjust the Y value to be 2.25. That way we can get it right under. And now we have the horizontal lines added. I'm going to go ahead and actually add some vertical lines as well. That way we can separate this up just a little bit more too. To add in the vertical lines, I'll go back into our insert and back into our shape menu. This will again start with a square, so we'll make sure we go back over to the line. Like before, we'll deselect round. We'll change that color to red. Go back into that object size, and what I want to do is just rotate that a little bit. So we can start with 90 degrees there. And now I know that we need for the actual length, it's likely just going to be whatever this length is here, which for what we have is going to be 0.75. Now for this next step, when it does come to adjusting the X and Y, we've been pretty specific with it before. We don't need to be as specific now. The only thing that I'm going to care about is making sure that we don't have any white gaps where this goes. So I'll drag this to a rough section like so, and then I'm going to use the mouse zoom wheel to actually scroll in a little bit and make sure we don't have a gap at the bottom. And I'm going to do that check as well at the top, just to, again, make sure there's no white gap. That way everything looks nice and closed off in our finished product. Since everything looks good, I'll go back into our alignment section here with these aligned labels, and I'm going to utilize that just to make sure it's centered there. That is one that I do want centered. The next thing, though, that I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this line twice. I'm going to add one over just a little bit so that I can add a date section. And I'm going to do that as well on this side, so we have a date section on both. So on both sides, there'll be a date section, a by section for initials or a name, again, another date section, and another by. I'll go ahead and copy, paste. And for this, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. There's nothing specific. I just want to make sure that when I do type in date, that does fit nicely. So if I do need to change it, I can always do that. For now, I have it copied and pasted, so I'll just kind of move it over a couple. I think likely that'll work pretty well. I'll do the same, select that one in the center again, copy, paste, and move that over a couple too. Now that I have those in a rough spot, I'm going to go ahead and use this recentering thing, take a look at it. I think both those look pretty even, so I'm happy with the way this table currently looks. Now we just actually need to add that date and by text. In order to do that, I'm actually just going to copy this extinguisher number section. It's already the size I want as well as the color, so we're going to go ahead and copy, paste. I'm going to double click on it here, that way I can edit it, highlight what I need, and just change that text to date. Next, we'll go ahead and drag and drop that section of text. I think that looks pretty decently centered in there already, so I'm not going to worry too much about making that one perfect. And I'm actually going to just copy this, paste it, and I'm going to go ahead and move it over into this. Now we just need to add the by column, so what I'm going to do, select that date, copy, paste. Double click to go into the edit, highlight the section again, type in by, then we want to just move it over to kind of be centered in that other column. With it centered, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing again, copy, paste, and move it. And after we've done that, this is our result. We still have one more table to add, and luckily most of that work has already been done by creating this table we've currently made. So I'm actually going to highlight everything, utilize that grouping feature once more, and I'm going to copy and paste this entire table. Once we have the table pasted, I'm going to actually go back into our object size, and this is where we're going to go through object position again. One thing to make note, you'll see that this is 0.17 for the X. That's something that happens with the line, so it's nothing we need to worry about since everything will still ultimately be centered on the label itself. With the Y, though, we do want to adjust that to be in the appropriate location, so we're going to change that to 2.75 in this instance. And then we have that same spacing in between this with that 1/4 inch. Next, to make any changes, we do need to ungroup this. So we're going to go through that same method of ungrouping. And you can do this for the other one as well by reselecting that group table and ungroup. Next, I want to go ahead and add 2 additional rows to the actual inspection record, which we do need to still change the text for as well. This isn't going to be 2 recharge records. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on the square on the outside just by going into this bottom right. And again, we want to add 2 more, so I know I need to increase this width by 1/2 inch. So we're going to change this to 1.5. The next thing we're going to do is actually copy and paste these lines. Same process that we went through before of copy and pasting and readjusting the actual Y value to be a 0.25 difference. So I'll go ahead and take care of that really quick, but that would be the process we'll go through. Now that I've done that, I just need to do the same for those vertical lines that we have. I know that we need to adjust these to be 1.25 instead of being that 0.75 due to adding that extra 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead and change that really quick for the length. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the others. Now we have our tables done as far as the grid lines are concerned. The only thing I need to do is go back in and change the text from recharge record to inspection record. And now that that's done, we only have one last thing that I want to do. I do want to add a line after this extension number. I'm going to show a quick method to do that that's easier than just guessing with the length of a line while still being able to keep it ending in the same spot. In order to do that, you'll just click on one of the lines we've already added. We'll copy and paste it like we've done before. Go into our object size, and we're going to use these arrows to just increase it to an area that looks okay for what we need. In this instance, I think that's going to look fine. So I'll go ahead and leave it here. If I do need to adjust it, we can always adjust the Y value a little bit just to bring it up, which after a second glance, I think I will do that. So I'm just going to set that to 1.3. Next, we'll go ahead and deselect the line that we just added and click on the extinguisher number text. You'll notice that the selection box does extend over that line. We're going to utilize that to actually cover up this section of the line by going into the paint palette and adding a background. For this, we'll want to change this to white. You'll notice nothing happens yet, so we do need to do some layering. This is one where we'll definitely want to use this spring to front. If we only use it where it goes up by 1, there's multiple layers we've added now with our additional changes, so bring to front does that real quick and easy. Now we have our inspection record label finished and it's ready to print from our Toro Max printer.
Thanks for watching. For further assistance, visit our website and contact our team for your free lifetime support.